Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, it is November 22nd, 2024, and the time is 26 p.m. We are at the Willcox Community Center at 312 West Stewart Street, Willcox, Arizona, 85643. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the Director's Order initiating proceedings to consider designating the Willcox Basin as an active management area. My name is Casey Allman. I am the Active Management Area Establishment Supervisor at the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and I will be the hearing officer for today's hearing. With me today from the department is Natalie Mast, AMA Director, who will provide an overview. Apologies. With me today is Natalie Mast, AMA Director, who will provide an overview of the AMA designation process, background, and regulatory features, and Ryan Mitchell, the department's Chief Hydrologist. Ryan will provide an overview of hydrology in the Willcox groundwater basin. Also with me today, the department are Lucas Bennett, Deputy Counsel, Shauna Evans, Public Information Officer, Madison Moreno, AMA Establishment Coordinator, Jose Rivera, Technical Support, and Sharon Scantleberry, Docket Supervisor. The department's director, Tom Bushansky, is not in attendance today. It is a long-standing policy of ADWR directors to not attend public meetings regarding matters under their consideration, so as to not create an impression of weighing the verbal comments more heavily than written comments. It is critical for the director to maintain objectivity and provide equal opportunity for comments, so in matters under the director's consideration, the department has typically made other staff available to provide information and to accept comments, as you see here today. I will also take time to acknowledge the elected officials who are present at this hearing. State Representative Gail Griffin, State Representative Lupe Diaz, State Representative Stephanie Stahl-Hamilton, State Representative Stacy Travers, and County Supervisor Peggy Judd. If I've missed anybody, please feel free to stand and introduce yourself. Today's public hearing will be transcribed by a court reporter. Today's hearing will be transcribed by a court reporter. Today's public hearing will be transcribed by a court reporter, so it is important for speakers to please speak up and speak slowly so that the court reporter can accurately record your comments. If anyone has difficulty hearing me or a speaker, please let me know. The transcript will be available to Today's public hearing will be transcribed by a court reporter. It is important for speakers to please speak up and speak slowly so that the court reporter can accurately record your comments. If anyone has difficulty hearing me or speaker, let me know. The transcript will be made available to ADWR's director and will be posted online as soon as available. Comments already sent to the docket supervisor are available on the department's website and will be part of the director's consideration. The website director's address, or the website address is azwater.gov/find-info-on/Willcox. At this hearing, ADWR will provide presentations on this public hearing process, an overview of the AMA designation process, background and regulatory features, as well as an overview of the hydrologic information about the basin. For those in person, if you haven't already done so, please sign the signage on the table near the entrance. There are also speaker cards on the table. If you'd like to speak today, please fill out a speaker card if you haven't already done so, and submit your card to Sharon Scantleberry or any other staff present from ADWR. For those on the webinar, we have provided a link to a virtual speaker card in the chat box and on the screen. The chat box can be opened by clicking the speech bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. If you would like, to speak via webinar today, submit your virtual speaker card and staff will call in and it is your turn to speak. Everyone is muted on entry to the webinar. You will be unmuted, it is your turn to speak. For those participating via telephone and not webinar, and you would like to make a verbal comment, please state your name. Apologies.
Don't use the mic. Just talk like I am now.
Please state your name and we will call on you when it is your turn to speak. If you would not like to make a comment, please simply stay silent. We will call telephone participants to speak after the webinar participants. Persons presenting at the hearing, whether in person or virtually, will be subject to a 3-minute time limit to allow for as many speakers as possible during today's hearing. The hearing will be conducted in a formal manner. As I mentioned previously, the contents of this hearing will be transcribed by a court reporter. A copy of the transcript of the hearing will be available for review at the department's office and will also be posted on the department's website when it is available. At the conclusion of this hearing, I will be accepting any written comments or documentary evidence that anyone may to submit to the department regarding the process. The department will also accept written comments, fax, or email prior to the next day. Written comments submitted up till midnight today could be submitted to the department's docket supervisor, Sharon Scantleberry, at docketsupervisor@water.gov or by fax at 602-771-8686. A copy of the public notice with Sharon's contact information is posted on the department's website, and her business cards are located at the table near the entrance if you would like one. On September 26, 2024, ADWR hosted a public meeting and informal session on the status of the Willcox groundwater basin, which included presentations regarding hydrologic conditions and management options. Public questions and comments from that meeting or otherwise submitted to the department were incorporated in an FAQ section on the Willcox groundwater basin page on ADWR's website. Next slide, please. Based on hydrologic information and the public comments received, the director signed an order on October 23, 2024 to initiate procedures to consider designating the Willcox groundwater basin as an AMA. In the same order, the director also ordered a public hearing. Today's public hearing is to receive evidence both oral and written as to the following criteria. 1. Active management practices are necessary to preserve the existing supply of groundwater for future needs. 2. Land subsidence or fissuring is endangering property or potential groundwater storage capacity. And 3. The use of groundwater is resulting in actual or threatened water quality degradation. The department will also present the factual data in its possession in support of proposed subsequent active management area pursuant to KRS State Statute 45-413C. Next slide, please. We see here the map of the Willcox groundwater basin that was included in the public notice. This map defines the boundaries of the groundwater basin that is subject to the proposed AMA. I will hand the mic over to Natalie Mask, AMA Director, for her presentation of overview of the AMA designation process, background, and regulatory features.
Thank you, Pete. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Mask. I am the Active Management Areas Director at AWR. I will provide a presentation that explains the AMA designation process, an overview of what an AMA is and what is required in an AMA, and some procedures related to the establishment of a subsequent AMA. Next slide, please. The legal structures for an active management area were established under the 1980 Groundwater Management Act, which created AWR, imposed groundwater regulations, imposed groundwater regulations in the initial irrigation non-expansion areas.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to let you know, we're getting a lot of people commenting that they want us to just, that they want us to just shout to the group, which we understand that sentiment, but the problem is that there's folks that are listening online, they can only hear audio if it goes through the microphone. That's why we're sticking with the microphone. We're obviously having a little bit of technical difficulty.
But we're here.
I know that it's cutting in and out. We can hear that up here as well. We're trying our best to tinker with it while we go. That's the reason that we're sticking with the microphone.
Nobody can hear you.
That's
What are
understood.
you saying?
It's fucking bullshit!
We all came out here for this crap. Be professional.
Try the other mic.
All right, we're going to continue. Thank you all for your patience. We understand that the technical issues are frustrating.
With respect.
The legal structures for active management areas were established under the 1980 Groundwater Management Act, which created AWR, imposed groundwater regulations in the initial irrigation non-expansion areas and active management areas, or AMAs, and authorized the establishment of new AMAs and IMAs by either local initiation or by designation of the AWR director.
With respect to the board.
Sir, we have time for public comment at the end of the video presentations. We'd like to continue.
People can hear you.
Existing,
If you would learn how to enunciate and pronunciate and project, people would be able to understand what you're saying. At the present time, no one in this room would like to have anything done that you're proposing.
sir, if you're not going to behave respectfully, we're going to ask you to leave. Thank you. The initial AMAs created by the Groundwater Management Act were Prescott, Phoenix, Canal, and Tucson. The Santa Cruz AMA was split out from the Tucson AMA in 1995, and is by statute still considered an initial AMA because it did nothing to change, or excuse me, because it did not change the geographic footprint of those initial AMAs. The establishment of the Douglas AMA in December of 2022 was the first ever subsequent AMA. The Groundwater Management Act created a tiered regulatory structure. This slide is not comprehensive, but like to start to give an idea of the additive nature of this structure. A few provisions, such as the registration of all wells, apply statewide. In irrigation, non-expansion areas, or INAs, additional provisions apply, like as the name provides, a prohibition on newly irrigated acres. In active management areas, or AMAs, still more provisions apply, including a requirement to obtain a grandfathered right or withdrawal permit for most uses of groundwater, assured water supply requirements, mandatory conservation programs designed to reduce withdrawals of groundwater, and well spacing provisions. This slide shows some of the water management tools that provide protection in an area. Mandatory measuring and reporting for non-exempt wells functions to provide good data which supports water management decision-making in an AMA. While impact analysis is required for new non-exempt wells in an AMA, and functions to limit negative impacts of new wells on nearby existing wells. Mandatory conservation programs are designed to reduce withdrawals of groundwater in the AMA, and can be made incrementally more stringent over successive management plans to help the AMA move toward its management goal. Assured water supply requirements require that new developments can demonstrate a 100-year water supply before they can be built, providing protection for prospective homebuyers. As I mentioned before, a new AMA can be created by a process initiated by the ADWR director. That process is summarized on the screen. When that process is initiated, an order is published by the ADWR director and a hearing is scheduled. This triggers a prohibition on the expansion of irrigated acreage for the area in question. I'll talk more about that on the next slide. And for this consideration of whether to establish an AMA in the Willcox groundwater basin, the formal legal process was initiated on October 23rd. And that triggered this irrigation non-expansion provision. No sooner than 30 days and no later than 60 days after the hearing is announced, a public hearing is required to be held in the basin in question, at which ADWR presents factual data in support of the proposed AMA and makes public comments. This is what we are here for today. Within 30 days, ADWR is required to issue written findings with respect to matters considered during the hearing, and we typically issue a decision at the same time as the findings. If the director decides to create an AMA, the prohibition on the expansion of irrigated acres would remain in effect permanently. If the director decides not to create an AMA, that prohibition would be lifted at that time. The definition of irrigation in this context, in the context of these proceedings and in the context of an AMA, to irrigate has a very specific definition, which is to apply water to 2 or more acres of land to produce plants or parts of plants for sale or human consumption, or for use as feed for livestock, range livestock, or poultry. As I mentioned on the previous slide, this process established a prohibition on the expansion of irrigated acres under that definition. This is a prohibition of the irrigation of any acres not legally irrigated at any time during the 5 years preceding October 23rd, 2024. To say that another way, only acres of land that were legally irrigated at any time between October 23, 2019 and October 23, 2024 may be irrigated pending a decision regarding these provisions, and lands found to be in violation of this prohibition may be fined up to $10,000 per day. Land development, investment, or irrigation after October 23rd, 2024 is not eligible to be considered for substantial capital investment, and ADWR's compliance team is actively monitoring irrigated acreage in the basin and will continue to investigate any potential violations. In considering whether to designate the Willcox groundwater basin as an AMA, the director will consider the following statutory criteria, as well as public comment and any recommendations made by local political subdivisions. If any of these criteria exist in the basin, the director may designate the area as a subsequent AMA. Number one, active management practices are necessary to preserve the existing supply of groundwater for future needs. Number two, land subsidence or fishing is endangering property or potential groundwater storage capacity. Number three, use of groundwater is resulting in actual or threatened water quality degradation. This slide shows a timeline summary of the establishment process if a new AMA is created. As mentioned before, the prohibition on the expansion of irrigated acres would become permanent. Additionally, all withdrawals from non-exempt wells would be required to be measured. And then on a future slide, I'm going to define what specifically a non-exempt well is. All withdrawals from non-exempt wells would be required to be measured using an approved measuring device or method. These measurements and other water use information must be submitted to the department annually by March 31st. These provisions would become effective immediately if an AMA is established. Within 30 days of the creation of an AMA, ADWR is required to propose a management goal for the AMA. Within 15 months of the creation of an AMA, anyone claiming the right to withdraw or receive and use groundwater pursuant to a grandfather right would be required to submit an application for a certificate of grandfather right. Anyone who did not submit an application by the deadline would be deemed to have waived and relinquished any right to use groundwater pursuant to a grandfather right. Within 2 years of the creation of an AMA, ADWR would adopt a management plan containing mandatory conservation requirements designed to reduce withdrawals of groundwater. The requirements in that plan would become effective at least 2 years after that adoption. This slide is not comprehensive. If an AMA is created, ADWR would work through these and other establishment processes to develop and implement the regulatory framework necessary to administer the AMA. This does take time. And ADWR would work to engage local stakeholders in these processes and communicate these timelines. Finally, this slide is intended as a clarification. There are a lot of details to the regulatory requirements associated with an AMA. Rights, measuring and reporting, conservation requirements, etc. And it's important to note that those requirements apply to those using groundwater from a non-exempt well. Those using groundwater from an exempt well are exempt from these requirements. An exempt well has to check 3 boxes. Has a pump capacity of 35 gallons per minute or less, uses less than 10 acre-feet for non-irrigation purposes, and is not being used to irrigate 2 or more acres of land. If it cannot check all 3 of those boxes, then it's a non-exempt well, and that water use is subject to AMA regulatory requirements. But if it meets those 3 criteria, then it's considered an exempt well, and it is exempt from needing to obtain a right of withdrawal authority, exempt from the requirement to measure and report water use, and is exempt from any conservation requirements in the management plan. Those wells do still need to be registered registered through ADWR's wells section. And we need to document any deepening or any other modifications, as well as any ownership changes. This specific requirement applies to all wells statewide, but those wells would be exempt from AMA-specific requirements. With that, I'd like to thank you for your patience and your attention so far, and I will hand the presentation on to Ryan Mitchell to discuss technology and Willcox groundwater research.
So I think now we might have found a sweet spot where maybe the microphone maybe the word. So I'll stay over here, stay close. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I do appreciate the engagement. I think this is an amazing show of interest from the locals, and I think it's fantastic that you're all here. Thank you for allowing us to come and talk to you and speak to you. We appreciate that as well. As Natalie said, my name is Ryan Mitchell. I'm the chief hydrologist, so I run the technical science branch of the department. So the folks that work for me are the field geologists, hydrologists, engineers, the guys that go out and collect data, that analyze data, that prepare groundwater flow models, that kind of do the technical and data science stuff that the department uses for decision making. Let's see if this works. Hey, it's working. All right. So in September, this last month, we were here and I gave a presentation that covered a whole lot of hydrology information. It was pretty long, it was really involved, but I do think it was really informative. We're not going to go through all of that stuff today. I just did some of the highlights from that September 26th presentation. But this slide here has a link in yellow that will take you to a website where not only the presentation from the 26th is posted, the slides are also posted, and the re-recorded, we have audio problem. We re-recorded the presentation and posted it where it was just straight to a microphone, so everyone can hear everything really clear. Went through the entire presentation again. So the information is there. We also wrote a technical memorandum and posted it to the website that summarizes everything that was presented hydrologically there as well. So if you do want more detail or more information about what Atlantic science is and how it occurs, the details is there. And today we're just gonna hop through some of the highlights. So as a regional overview, the Willcox Basin is in the basin of the geographic province. That means it's a down-draft basin filled with basin-fill alluvium. So there's sands, gravels, clay, just fine grained, unconsolidated stuff that falls into the central basin. And over time, that central basin will fill with water from precipitation, snowmelt, rainfall, and that comprises the alluvial aquifer of the Willcox Basin. There's a large evaporative fly feature in the center of the basin. Because the basin is internally draining, that means all of the surface water extractions and rain will collect in the middle of the basin and then evaporates out. You guys are all probably very familiar, but it is a feature that you find here in Willcox. The elevation can range from about 4,000 feet in the basin floor at the lowest point, up to over 10,000 feet near Mount Graham. Thank you. The groundwater is considered alluvial, meaning it does occur in those loose, unconsolidated sediments. Because the alluvial basin is a mixture of gravels, sand, clay, and other fine-grained materials. Sorry. Trying to yell too. Because it's a mixture of all these multiple material types, you'll have different confining zones. So you'll have unconfined and confined aquifer conditions within this basin. Precipitation ranges down at the basin floor about a foot per year, 10 to 12 inches. And as you go up in elevation, you get more precipitation. There's about 14 to 18 inches of rainfall that you guys receive up on those slopes. So we have a lot of data in the basin itself. Just a quick summary of what data we have available to us now. There are 52 index wells in the Willcox Basin. 4 of which are measured automatically with transducers. We actually recently installed 2 more, so thank you for that. We have 48 of those index wells that we measure annually. So some are recorded continuously, and that gets delivered to our database every day. Some we send out to field hydrologist guys, they collect the measurements manually about once a year. In addition to
The regular annual water level collection will occasionally do what's called a basin sweep. And that's when we come out with a huge group of really fast we can, and we collect as many water levels all through the basin in as short of a time period as possible. And when we do that, we get a nice snapshot of the water table of what the aquifer looks like, during that time or so, how long it takes us to conduct one. We've conducted basin sweeps 6 different times, so 1990, 94, 99, 05, 15, 15, and 2021. In just those basin sweeps alone, we had 4,600 water level measurements that we collect. In addition to water level information, we will also collect discharge rate data. We're not necessarily interested in what the pump can yield. What we want to know is what the aquifer can yield, because we can back calculate that into a hydraulic conductivity value, and it tells us information about the aquifer itself. We do collect and monitor land subsidence across the state, in particular those in the Willcox Basin. And the AZGS will actually map current figures throughout the state, and there's significant figure activity here in Willcox as well. Currently, there are no active USGS stream gauges. Those are the ones that record water that's flowing down the creek or the arroyo, or that is a federal water stream or shed. So we had some in the past that we collected in the front. We haven't had an active stream gauge in the basin for a few years now. We are working with the USGS to install a few across the state. We'd like to get some here. In addition to the empirical data, some measurements that I showed in my previous slide, we also modeled the basin as well. In 2018, we released a model. If anyone's interested in reading more, the link here will take you to the modeling report. This was a model of the basin where we essentially said we know the water level information go back to the 40s. We've got 75 years or so of pumping history and of water level data. Can we make a simulation that simulates the aquifer so that we can start using that for planning purposes? And so we have a really good fit with this model where we were able to simulate all of the water level conditions across that long 75-year period of record. And we found that when we ran the created model, prepared it, and when we ran it, it matched our water level information that we had over the decades, and it showed that about 400 feet of drawdown in the Kansas settlement area, which is consistent with the water level recordings that we've collected over the decades. And then the model, we use it as a tool, so it is a tool, and it can always be refined and improved on. But we use it as a tool to say, we may not know exactly the discharge rates that everyone's pumping, but we know that the water table was here, and then it was here, and then it was here over time. And we're able to then calculate, well, how much water in total was withdrawn over that period of time. So we know it on a basin-wide scale. And on a basin-wide scale, the model is estimating just under 6 million acre feet, 5.7 million acre feet of groundwater that's been withdrawn from the aquifer. And to put that into perspective, if all the wells in the basin were turned off today, and the basin was left to its own devices, it's our natural discharge rate, it would take about 280 years for that amount of water to recover to get back to the pre-developed 1940 water level. So this is an example of the type of way we synthesize the information in the data and start modeling it. The next few slides, we're going to look at individual wells and what their drawdown looks like over time. So on the left, you'll see a map of the basin itself. The red boundary is the basin boundary. All the blue dots you see are wells, the location of wells. The red blob kind of in the middle, those are the map subsidence features. So there's actually 2 features. It's kind of hard to see that there's a separation between the 2, but there's a northern feature and a southern feature. And what we're going to do, you can see a little yellow dot with the arrow going to it. This is the well that we're going to look at a hydrograph of. Now, a hydrograph is, as it sounds, just a graph of the water that's in the well. On the left side, you have the depth to water, so the number is going down as it's increasingly go down because it can deeper. On the right-hand side, you have what we call water level elevation. So that's the water level above the sea level. They both tell you the exact same thing. It's just one is the number that's increasing as you go down, but the other one is decreasing as you go down. So that's elevation above sea level. Point being, we have information for a well going back to In this case, 1969 for this particular well. We're going to start up in the north and work our way down through the basin and look at a few different wells. In 1969, we had a measurement of 335 feet below land surface. In 2023, last November, we had a measurement of 458 feet below land surface. So on the bottom, on the x-axis, that's actually the date, such as time is going by. So this is several decades. And we have a decline of about 123 feet in a 55-year period. So let's move down south a little bit further. Now we're in one of the subsidence features now. The first measurement we have here, all these plots will have the same map on the left. And I also want to point out, there's a link on the bottom in blue below the map. If you were to click that link, well, it's on our website as well. If you were to click that link, it takes you to an interactive map, kind of like Google Maps or Google Earth. And you can scroll around, look around, and you can click on any of our wells and see all of the water levels that we have to know. So it's a publicly available, easy to navigate map. I encourage everyone to take a look in your area and just kind of see what is the water level doing where you live or if you have any other areas of interest. But this particular well, 1965, 170 feet below land surface. At 2023, we're at 379 feet below land surface. So that's over 200 feet of decline in 50 years. Here we have a well where 1954, so we've got a longer period record here, 83 feet below land surface. And in 2023 is 199 feet. And I'll point out, a lot of these wells will have a similar trend. It kind of looks like an S shape. So there's a lot of decline in the 50s and 60s. It kind of comes back up during the 90s and then it'll drop back down again. And that actually represents all this wet hydrology that we had during the 90s. It's a very wet decade across the whole state. Lots of rainfall, lots of snow. The aquifer was actually gaining water as the natural recharge was so high. And then with this drop that you see at the end, that means the water budget is out of balance and there's more withdrawals than there are recharge. And so that's when you see water levels declining over time across the whole basin. That kind of signifies to us, or is a signal to hydrologists, that the water budget is out of balance and that the outflows are exceeding even flows. But we look at this well, it's 116 feet of decline in 69 years. Here we move south of the lake, of the playa, and we're now in the Kansas settlement area. First measurement here in 1954 is 41 feet. I want to point out that the scale on this particular plot is different than the previous ones. Instead of being 10 feet or so for each of those tick marks, we are now looking at hundreds of feet for each tick mark. So you can see the same drop, kind of leveling out and drop again. But this is 368 feet of decline in a 68-year period. Here's another one in the same area, where we show over 400 feet of decline in a 68-year period. We move a bit further to the west. Similar trend, a little bit of leveling and back down again. But overall, this one we have 205 feet in 69 years. And this one is interesting because there's a really steep decline here in the beginning. So 1966 to 1981, this one showed 114 feet of decline in just 15 years. So when we were looking at the first couple of hydrographs up in the northern area, there were 123 feet, 118 feet over a 50, 60-year period. This particular well saw the same amount of drawdown, but in just a decade and a half. And then you have that kind of that recovery period where some water's coming in and you see it level out, but then you see it kind of dropping off again. And if we look at just the last 13 years, just to see what the rate is, it's actually increasing every year, it's getting steeper. But this particular well had another 111 feet in just a 13-year period. So these are really rapid scaling and really rapid declines. Another way to look at the water level data over time, so those were all individual wells. So we take a single point and we're looking at what this water table is doing over time. Another way to do it is to look at the entire basin and map out, remember I said we do those basin sweeps where we come out, where we hit as many wells as we could, and then we get an idea of what the surface looks like and what the water table looks like. And then we say, let's fast forward. In this case, we did from 1990 to 2021. So let's fast forward 31 years. and see what the water table do. Did it go up? Did it go down? Did it stay the same? And this map that you're seeing here are contours of the water level change over that 30-year period. So where you see the concentric circles, the rings, those are contour intervals that are actually telling you that the water level has changed a lot in that spot where the bullseye are local tones of depression. So we noticed that over the 30-year period, the water table, especially in the southern area, had over 200 feet of drawdown across the whole area, not just on single points, but across the whole area, greater than 200 feet with that 30-year period. Another data point that we like to consider or look at when we're assessing the health of an aquifer system, we want to know what the water budget is, how the aquifer is performing. If you look and see, well, do we have any wells that are dry? That's something that's more intuitive, a bit easier to understand. Is my well, it used to have water, now it doesn't. This map you see here show all of the index wells that our field hydrologists have gone out to measure, where they have collected measurements before the past. So year after year, they come back out, they always get a water level. Then they come out 1 year, and the well is now dry. They'll flag it in our database, they'll tag it in the system, they'll keep checking it to see if it ever comes back up. But these are wells that across the Willcox Basin that we used to monitor, and now they're dry. There's 71 of them in Willcox. And one question I posed to my staff was, well, what about just recently, what about the last 10 years, just in the last decade? In the last 10 years, of the 71 wells, 29 of them have gone dry just in the last 10 years. So that tells me that the rate is accelerating. 29 of the wells, that's approximately 40% of them. So the first map is going back to the 40s, so there could have been a ton of wells back then that went dry years ago, but almost 30 that went dry just in the last 10 years. And as I said, these were wells that our staff would go out and try to measure and then find that they were dry. You can report your own wells that you go dry, and this QR code and the link will take you to the form that you would fill out. So if you have a well on your property or a well of your own that does go dry, I encourage you to report it because we can include it in our database like this. So far in Willcox, we've only had one person report a dry well. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. It was an unregistered well. So it wasn't even in our system. It was a well from, pre-1940 cable tool well. But beyond that, no one's yet to report any additional dry wells to us. So it might have been hard to hear, but one of the criteria that Natalie spoke about for consideration of an AMA is land subsidence. Land subsidence is a phenomenon that occurs when the water, the saturated alluvium that's been full of water for millennia has been dry, and the soil will start to compact. And it'll start to compact over this, if we said 400 feet in some areas, if the water level declining, that means 400 feet is just a little bit of compaction, which got a whole lot of it. And it represents itself at the surface as a lowering of the surface elevation. So the land is actually going down over time in areas where the aquifer is being free. And like I said, if you want the full explainer, the other videos or the presentations that we gave with a lot of detail. So I'm going to jump right to the maps to show you guys what the subsidence in Willcox looks like. This here is a map of the Willcox Basin just for the last 14 years. We have hundreds of these subsidence maps across the state on our website. So if you want to see different periods of time, if you want to see just a 5-year period, going back 30 years, if you want to see different time scales, we have a whole map series. I encourage you guys to go check it out. But in the last 14 years alone, we've been seeing and measured between 47 and 55 inches of subsidence, of lowering of the land surface elevation in the areas where we see the top. I believe there's someone in the back that's playing a video that's disrupting some folks, so if you could please keep the audio, cell phone videos off, or at least quiet for now. It would be much appreciated. Thank you guys. So as a reminder, land subsidence is a function of the alluvium active being dewatered. So this is kind of telling you where the dewatering occurred and then the collapse of the soil. So another thing that we look at besides just total land subsidence, we want to know what is the rate of subsidence. Because it's like a car driving down the highway, you're going a certain speed. Is that like speeding up or slowing down? Is the rate of subsidence maintaining the same year after year? So this graph here is a measurement of the subsidence that occurred in a 1 year period during 1996. And you can see anywhere that's white or had an outward polygon, there was no negative subsidence. The really faint kind of yellows and browns you're seeing is about 0.4 to 1.2 inches in that 1 year period. So subsidence was occurring in the 90s, but it was occurring at a pretty slow rate. And this is this last year. So in 12-month period, 2023 to 2024, we're seeing almost 3 inches of subsidence year over year. And that rate of subsidence is increasing. So to us, that is significant. That means that if everyone were to stop pumping today, and disappear out of the basin, the land would continue to subside for a few decades before it really. So this is a problem that we want to try to address now and not let it exacerbate it further. Here's an iconic photo when the geophysicists go out there and they say, hey, here's what the elevation used to be, and here's what it is now. This is Brian Conway. He is the manager of our geophysics unit. Very brilliant geophysicist. He's holding up the sign that's showing 11.5 feet of subsidence from 1969 until today. And a few other signs or pieces of evidence that land subsidence is occurring are things that we call floating well pads. So this is a wellhead, and when this well was drilled and installed, they poured the cement pad at the surface as a footing and sometimes to focus on. And over time, this area, the water levels decline, the gets compact, and the whole area is dropping and lowering. And because the casing itself has some rigidity and some internal integrity, it will hold itself up some. So the land is dropping below, and now you've got this well pad floating up in the air. This particular well pad is about 30 or 31 inches off the ground right here. That doesn't mean that there has only been 30 inches of subsidence here, because chances are the casing is catching that depth, and when it does collapse at a deeper depth, it will crinkle the casing of the soil camps. That's why this particular well doesn't have a pump on it anymore. I have a feeling they probably can't get down it any longer. But this is a visual sign that you can see, oh yeah, the land is actually subsiding, it is lowering. Even though it's imperceptible, because it's a few inches year over year, it's kind of hard to notice. But here's a piece of evidence. Here's another one. Can't settle that area. Here's another one where the pad was lifted up. It was so heavy that it kind of broke under its own weight. Here's a different one. These photos are just to show, we have the satellite imagery or measurements of the land subsidence occurring, but there's also boots on the ground physical evidence of it as well. In addition to subsidence, there's a phenomenon called earth fissuring, and that is when you have subsidence occurring and you have an underground ridge of some kind, and when the land wants to keep going down, it's being held up on one side, and you start to kind of pull apart the soil a little bit, and you'll get these hairline fractures. Those hairline fractures will then erode and fill with water over time, and eventually they'll open up as the earth fissure, crack in the ground. In Willcox, the AZGS will map these earth fissures. They are related to subsidence, so we do monitor them ourselves as well. But the AZGS are the folks who come out and use their GPS and actually mark it on maps and all that information. Last summer, in the end of July 2023, they had 48.76 miles worth of earth fissures that have occurred in the Willcox Basin. We know that number has gone up since then. We have earth fissures that open up after almost every rainstorm. We see stuff everywhere. So this is a map that shows the two subsidence features, the purple one up north and the Cancello feature down in kind of a teal color. It's kind of hard to see, but there's these little black lines that show up on the map. I'm going to switch to another view so you guys can see them better. And this is the distribution of kind of where those fissures occur. So here, if we look at this version, on the left, we have the southern half of the basin of the southern subsidence feature. On the right, we have, or right at the northern half. And we kind of put it in red so it's a little bit easier to kind of stand out. But we've got about 50 miles worth of map fissures across the basin. So what do sure plenty of folks in this room have some on the property. But here's one, there's a big crack that opens up in the ground. This one's coming through a fence and going towards Stock Pond, near Sulphur Hills. Here's one that opened up, Ranch House in Fort Grant Roads, in 2023. This is an AZGS, geologist mapping it. And you can see this was a fresh one that just opened up. Here's one near Dragon Road, 2019. You can kind of see into it some, but there's actually open void space underneath there. These things really are geohazard. They're dangerous to property and people and livestock. The only reason you see the two cracks that are continuing up. That little piece right there looks like it wants to fall down too, but there's vegetation there. And so the roots are likely holding that piece in place, so it could be open underneath. This is a kind of condition where you have a cattle walking across the falling. Here's one near Dragon Road that's actually cutting underneath the road, so the road is bigger. Here's one that's really wide. It's actually a good 20 feet. It opened up really wide and far apart. This was one of our field guys that went out to collect a measurement at a well, and the road was down. So it's not the height of this way, but they do show up in pretty rapidly. Here's another fresh one. This is from, I say fresh because you can see how it's still a little damp, and there's some better look at darkness to the soil there. The roots are holding that piece up as well. I wouldn't walk across that if it were me. Here's another one cutting across the road. Here's another one that had just opened up that night before, and you can see the roots from the front to on the right are actually still stretching across the ground. Here's another one for 2021 where the water is still draining, but the asphalt, that piece of road right there, is actually fine. So, like I said, we gave a really lengthy explainer kind of presentation in September, and this was meant to be the quick highlights of that. If you guys would like any additional information, I encourage you to watch out the recording and read the technical memo, check out the website, the information will be there. But as a quick summary, in the Willcox Basin, groundwater declines have been observed greater than 400 feet in a period record. So land subsidence is definitely present and a real factor out here. The rate of subsidence has been increasing year after year. And there are significant earth fissures that we have seen and mapped across the basin. And I believe I'm getting back to this.
Thank you, Ryan. We will now move into the public comment portion of the hearing. We recognize that there may be strong opinions on the potential designation of an AMA, and we ask for your cooperation with our efforts to conduct this hearing in an orderly fashion. We will call the names of individuals who have filled out speaker cards, either in person or virtually, in the order that they are received. When the time comes, please make your way to the podium. Persons with limited mobility who would like to speak should remain in their seats, and we will bring the microphone to you when it is your turn to speak. For those attending virtually, if you have filled out the virtual speaker card at the link provided in the chat box, we will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. Those wishing to speak may be subject to a 3-minute time limit. We ask for your cooperation in respecting that time limitation. We will enforce this limitation, and we will move to the next speaker once the time limitation has expired. We ask that others refrain from talking while a speaker is speaking, and that the speaker direct his or her comments or questions towards me, rather than to the members of the public. The department will also accept written comments via fax or email prior to midnight today. Written comments should be submitted prior to midnight today and should be submitted to the department's docket supervisor, Sharon Scantleberry, by email to docketsupervisor@azwater.gov or fax at 602-771-8686. Sharon's business card can also be picked up as you exit if you did not already pick it up. We will take a moment now to collect speaker cards which have not already been turned in. After that, I will begin calling on those who have filled out speaker cards. Is there anybody in the audience that has a speaker card and you wish to turn it?
I see what you're saying. I see why you're saying it. Should have come down here last week and checked out the bill. No. I would rather you get a good take and worry about me. I can see it later.
For those participating via telephone and not on the webinar who would like to make a verbal comment, please state and spell your name now, and we will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. If you would not like to make a comment, please simply stay silent. We will call on telephone participants to speak after webinar participants. We will unmute telephone participants now. Please be advised that those presenting comments at the hearing, whether in person or virtually, will be subject to a 3-minute time limit to ensure all who wish to speak receive an opportunity to do so. I will now begin calling the names of the persons who filled out speaker cards, either in person or virtually. If you wish to speak and have not filled out a speaker card, please fill out one of the cards at the table near the entrance, or by using the link in the chat box and submit it to Sharon Scantlebury. When I call your name, please come up to the podium, state and spell your name, identify any person or entity that you represent, and then give your comments. If you are participating via the webinar, when I call your name, staff will help unmute you. Please state and spell your name, identify any person or entity that you represent, and then give your comments. As a reminder, there is a 3-minute time limit. The first name is Jim Applegate.
I'm Jim Applegate. I'm representing myself. I have 3 questions. One, what regulation, rule law gives the governor the right to declare a valid vote null and void? 2 years ago, we voted on this. Now, all of a sudden, he is writing out a bill. Now, this is part of the problem that you're having. It's by edict rather than by education. If people would come down, you put on a demonstration, I grant you there is a problem. But it isn't solvable by saying you will. It says we should. It's ought to get together and do this. That's my first question. My second question was you showed a bunch of pictures of the Dragoon area of some fissures, some dry wells, everything. And in those pictures is the power plant. How will the power plant be in this AMA thing? Now, they're probably, what I was told, about the biggest user of water in this valley. They are where we ought to start.
ask that you keep applause to a minimum just so folks online can clearly. Thank you for that. Next speaker is James Graham.
Thank you for taking the time to come and meet with us, and appreciate your courage.
Would you mind speaking
Jim
a little
Graham.
closer? Would you mind speaking a little bit closer to the mic? Sorry.
My name is Jim Graham, Graham, just like Graham crackers. My wife and I farm. We have 400 acres near Dragoon in the Cochise area. We raise pistachios and wine grapes. We stand in opposition to the AMA. We don't think that the AMA solved the problem. We agree with almost everybody here that there's a problem. It just won't solve the problem. And it would create winners and losers. The winners would be those who have exploited the aquifer for a long period of time, outside investors that have a lot of money, and people like us that have a family farm for over 40 years. We're small, we have to pay for things as we can pay for them. It's a long-term plan. We start with small acreage and expand it over a period of time. Our farm has been expanded 5 times over 40 years. We have a vineyard. We would like to be able to expand that more at some point in time. The AMA would not allow that. So, again, winners and losers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. Next up, Lisa Glenn.
We are grateful that you have come to this point. My name is Lisa Glenn, and my husband and I have lived in Willcox for 57 years. I am indeed grateful that we have finally come to this moment when there is an actual chance that we will get an AMA that can lead to further sensible and appropriate regulation for the Willcox groundwater basin and for other rural groundwater basins as well. It's been a long time getting here. For decades, residents of the Willcox groundwater basin have asked for some information.
Where did it go? Take a breath, Lisa. You'll be fine.
Okay, we have been asking for some regulation of groundwater pumping and rural basin from 2011, which is Senate Bill 1341, which took away the earlier right of the county supervisor to regulate or limit the size of industrialized dairy feedlots. To 2015, when the legislature rejected the groundwater conservation area proposal for the Willcox area. Then again, in 2020, when over 60 water bills were introduced, including a bill to create locally driven rural management areas, an alternative to IMAs and AMAs, the very thing that the majority of residents have been asking for. This bill was not given a chance for a vote. In 2021, another rural management area bill given no hearing. 2022, members of the governor's non-AMA subcommittee formed a new group after efforts to discuss rural groundwater protection or BLOC. 2023, a local groundwater stewardship area bill is introduced in the legislature. House Bill 2731, Senate Bill 1306, by the House and Senate majority leaders. These bills 2011, there have been 711 new non-exempt wells drilled. The most, approximately 105 wells, in 2015, after Riverview came in. And again, in 2022, approximately 147 wells.
Ma'am, I apologize for interrupting your time. If you have written comments, we can take the remainder of the room.
May I add just one thing? We are at a point that none of us ever thought we would be at, and we can work together to make this work for all of us in a fair manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Next up, Dan Stockwell. I will remind you to please speak as closely to the mic as you can, and then of course state your name and spell as well for the record. Dan Stockwell. We will move on to Jim Berger, and then after that will be Michelle Brothers.
My name is Jim Furner. That's B-E-R-N-E-R. I'm 82 years old, and about 3 months ago I had a stroke, and so I'm still having difficulty speaking, so I asked you to bear with me a little bit on that. Okay, I was born and raised in Phoenix, and I hunted, fished, and hiked over the whole state. When I was ready to retire about 8 years ago, I fell in love with Cochise County, and I purchased my home in the Pierce Sunsites area in 2016. With its gorgeous views of the Chiricahuas to the east and Cochise Stronghold to the west, I had found paradise. Now, from my earliest years growing up in the desert Southwest, I understood Arizona has limited resources with water, and they must be used efficiently. But the evidence presented in the meeting on September 26th confirmed my worst fears about the significant depletion of the aquifer in the Willcox Basin. Pumping out 3.5 times more water than is replenished is simply not sustainable. This level of depletion has certainly caused many wells to go dry. Now, while I philosophically am very opposed to government encroaching on our freedoms, the depletion of the aquifer is so severe, we must have an AMA to ensure sustainability of residents as well as some agriculture. And it's agriculture that I want to address right now. As an agronomist, I manage international crop nutrition companies. And I also had a consulting company called Sustainable Arid Agriculture. And it's focused on arid areas in Latin America, Southern Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. I was asked to speak in many fertilizer conferences in all these areas because my expertise and experience was in adapting fertilizer programs to control plant stress and achieve achieve water efficiency. I worked with many virtually all kinds of crops, field crops, vineyards, tree crops. Now, in the time allowed here, it's impossible to cover the details of my work and how it improves water efficiency. But I hope I can say enough so that farmers and home gardeners will ask me for more information, which I'll gladly share. And I think it's interesting that when I first came here and I saw the climate and the water conditions, I went to several farms to see if they would be interested in trying some of the concepts that I applied in other areas. I was surprised when they weren't interested. Maybe it's because they thought I was.
I'm sorry, sir, you reached your peak.
Perhaps they thought I would have to.
Sir, out of respect for other speakers here today, you reached your limit. Thank you.
We'd be glad to take your written comments as a part of your comments. I
don't hear very well either.
I apologize, your time, but we can take your written comments.
We can take your written comments if you'd like to provide them to us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Werner. Next up is Michelle Brothers. After that will be Robbie Sproul.
Good afternoon, my name is Michelle Roberts. I live a little bit east of Willcox, and I'm sure the well has gone dry. Within a half mile of my house is not working. We are all down, who knows how many feet. I had my job about 20 feet, and I'm going to
And here, one word.
I may have 20 feet of water in my well, and that's it.
Yes.
My next door neighbor has the
Excuse me,
same
miss.
issue.
We need you to speak into the microphone so
It
that
doesn't work.
you just have to speak closer, please.
I get it close. Is this around now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Like I said, there are 3 wells that have been put in the last, I'd say year and a half to 2 years in my particular area, within half a mile of my house. I'm down to maybe 20 feet of water. My next door neighbor is probably the same because they just started having problems this year. I don't care in this AMA where you are showing us how these big users, and yeah, they need it, the agriculture, the farmers, and the rangers. How are we going to conserve? Residential obviously aren't going to do it, they're going to be non-exempt wells. But if these big users don't have some conservation efforts, what good is it going to do?
Thank you, Ms. Brothers. Next up is Robbie Sproul. After that will be Janet Randall.
Thank you, Vicky. My name is Robbie Sproul, R-O-B-B-I-E-S-P-R-O-U-L. I want to put a star on that, my name, because I think I can say that AWR, a bunch of lawsuits, so what I have to say there. Anyway, I'm a rancher of a 4th generation ranch. That ranch has been in my family for 4 generations since the late 1800s. And we don't have issues with our wells. The water isn't dropping, probably because we're mining the aquifer. So I think that makes me a good representative to speak for all of this group. I'm on several water committees. We've been working hard to try and present some solutions. And thank you, Lisa Glenn, for stating the bills that I was going to state that did not pass. I'm very disappointed in our legislature. They have not helped us a bit. I know water has been a big issue, but my concerns are local input into the process, okay? First and foremost. And of course, the water. We all fissures are dangerous, and the subsidence is permanent. It's going to affect the storage of our water forever. So with that in mind, that's going to affect our land values, already has. Will get worse. It's also going to affect our heritage for future generations. There's many farms and ranches and businesses that have been here for generations in this valley and in this aquifer. So I'm here today to discuss how I feel about the AMA. These are my feelings, not feelings of any group that I'm on, any committees. But I needed about 6 or 7 minutes. 3's pretty short, so I'm a little fast. Anyway, I want to address 2 groups today. All the people behind me, all the committees that we're on, and all the hard work we've been putting into trying to come up with a solution. Okay? What I understand the AMA is a last resort. You know, I understand the director, the DWR, and the governor have to do something because it's a very public issue. So, hopefully I have some solutions. We'll see. Anyway, the other group is you all, ADWR. But first, the group behind me, I want you all to think that ADWR is not our enemy. We can all come up with solutions for the problem, especially working together like a lot of us already have. But at some point, it's going to take some regulation of water usage. We all understand that. And that's where we need help from the ADWR. Okay, to ADWR. First of all, you've got a lot of facts and figures and data for us to show exactly how the aquifer is going down. And I would request that we kind of work with your expertise and knowledge. I've talked to Ryan about this a couple of times, about geology for the recharge. You know, we have hydrology and all that, but in my opinion, the first and foremost thing we should do for this water issue is to work very diligently on recharge. But we need some of your help for that. Okay? My time up already? Oh, no. Okay, can I have just 30 seconds, please? Because I have some important points. I'm going to just go ahead. We need your help to do that.
I'm sorry, we need to be fair to the rest of the folks in that area. We have a lot of things that
Okay. The current AMA isn't going to help us, but we can help you come up with a plan that will.
Thank you, Mr. Sproul. And again, to Ryan's your written comments as well, so thank you. Next up is going to be Janet Randall, please. And after that, Oscar Aguilar.
My name is Janet, Janetra, D-A-L. To the visitors and the audience, my name is Janet Randall, and I live in another part of Willcox Basin, where the ground is subsided due to overpumping. The ground in this area has subsided more than 2.5 feet in the last 14 years. My neighbor to the west of my property has a well that has been destroyed by uneven subsidence. Her well casing is 4.5. It would cost her $50,000 to repair. My neighbor to the south is also having to haul water because of the drop in water level. I had to deepen my well to the tune of $10,000 10 years ago, and do not know how long I have on that deepening before I run out of water. Due to uneven subsidence, my house is broken in half and is now unsellable and unsafe. I purchased this home nearly 25 years ago, and there was no evidence then of damage due to subsidence. I understand that in the mid to late 1990s, subsidence in this area was maybe 1 to 1.5 inches per year, compared to the 2.5 to 3.5 inches per year currently documented by ADWR. The very noticeable damage in my home started around 2012, The pictures below, which I am going to submit to you, shows some of the current damage to my home. I wholeheartedly support an AMA to stop more wells and homes from being damaged by subsidence in this area. Thank you for considering designation of an AMA for the Willcox Basin.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. Next up is Oscar Aguilar. After that would be Don Gretz Oscar. Sorry for bad pronunciation.
What was that name?
Oscar Aguilar.
Oscar.
No Oscar? Okay. Next up is Don Grunch Ocker. After that would be Torrin Hodge. No Don Grunch. Next up will be Torrin Hodge. And after that, Sonia Gasha.
Torrin Hodge, T-O-R-I-N-H-O-D-G-P. That represents my farm, Date Trails, LLC. I'm currently farming a small vineyard in Pierce on my late grandmother's property. I studied agricultural engineering at the University of Arizona as an investment in my farming practices. Since I graduated in 2021, I've also been working as a scientist in row crop breeding, improving the water use efficiency of corn. Many of the vines we planted are newly released hybrids, which are resistant to Pierce's disease, a devastating pathogen that poses a significant threat to growers in the southern United States. Wines produced from these varieties will be novel for the state, and I'm willing to accept the risk that comes with establishing its new market. To make this happen, we need to have 5 acres planted in order to qualify for the farm license. I'm also 2 years deep into experimenting with wild Southwest grapevine species, such as Vitis arizonica, for use as drought-tolerant and Pierce's disease-resistant rootstocks. This is a decades-long project ahead that will eventually require the expansion of several additional acres for field testing. The results of these trials have the potential to benefit both growers and breeders in the state and throughout the Southwest. I have deep sympathy for my neighbors in Cochise County whose wells aren't dry. I also understand there is an urgent need to protect our water resources. However, this proposed AMA seems to threaten both my research and my farm. If this goes through, my only option may be to seek property outside of the county or even outside of the state. This is something I cannot afford, and it would severely delay my research if not end it completely. My ask is that if you move forward with an AMA, to please include nuance in the legislation that will not only allow small family wine growers like myself to continue operations, but also to encourage new, innovative farmers to enter the industry and support our local economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Next up is Sonia Chow. After that will be Ann Pierce.
Water is precious, particularly in the desert. Water is life.
Could you please state your name and spell it for the
I'm
record?
getting there. Something we all agree on. My name is Sonia Gasho, Soniagasho, and I am a local rancher in Pierce. I work with the Cochise County Farm and Livestock Bureau, Cochise Ground Cattle Growers, and I'm a local business owner. 2 years ago, the people of Willcox voted no on an initiative to enact an AMA. Governor Hobbs and Director Bishotsky's disdain of that decision is insulting and appears to be from a bureaucratic, we know best, dictatorial position. The people have spoken and that should never be ignored. Governor Hobbs and Director Bishotsky should be here in person. An AMA is the wrong management tool for this battle. Enacting an AMA will stop irrigation expansion and fulfill the public's demand for something to happen. In this 30-second soundbite culture, it sounds like a clear-cut decision and that changes will happen right away. It is not. It is a complex, difficult, and nuanced decision that should not be chosen lightly or as a so-called only choice. It will not put water back into anyone's well or fill in fissures. It won't stop the quote big guys from farming. It will stymie the wine industry's growth across the state, as 85% of the grapes are grown in this area, and an AMA will freeze vineyards at their current acreage. It does not allow flexibility for adaptation of new technologies. It will adversely affect the local economy, as agriculture is the main economic driver in this valley, following government-related jobs. Over the past 3 years, we've often heard nothing is happening. This is simply not true. 2 or more public coalitions, like the SSWA and the RWA, have been formed, bringing all water use sectors to the table. Robust conversations have taken place, and at least one recharge project has been funded. 2 bills were drafted in the legislature. Though neither passed, this shows a recognition of the need for and great effort to find appropriate alternatives, particularly on agriculture's part. This begs the question how to move forward if an AMA isn't the right fit. Recharge projects, irrigation districts, and a residential water district should all be investigated and considered for implementation. True incentives for recognition of and for water conservation practices must be a part of any work. I call on the Director and Governor Hobbs to stop giving environmental activist groups preference and end partisan political party maneuverings. I urge Governor Hobbs to not insist on her Water Council's recommendations above the voice of our communities and neighbors that live and work here. Instead, let us come back to the table with the department, council, legislature, local work groups, and the governor to build on the efforts already made and find a legislative option that will work, not only for the Willcox Basin, but for all of Arizona.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Dan Pierce, and after that will be Barbara.
But if Steve's here, maybe he can knock her down.
Young lady, you were right all the way. I am Dan Pierce. Dan, P-I-E-R-C-E.
Sir, speak to
Okay,
the
I'll speak right. Address you. I'm talking to these people. I'm sorry, but anyway. Dear Director of the Arizona Department of Water Resources, in 2022, the citizens of Willcox Groundwater Basin voted against an active management area. As vineyard owners in the Willcox American Viticulture area, we are still opposed to the creation of an active management area. In the Willcox Basin, an AMA is not the right solution for the problem. Developing a vineyard takes a large amount of money, capital, and time. We're in the process of developing 78 acres on the Willcox Bench into a vineyard, winery, and tasting room. We have 32 acres of wine, grapes, in production. We are currently developing another 25 acres of grapevines, and we have cleared land and are bringing a 1,000-foot well online. We drilled and certified the well with the AZDWR in 2022, and we have a 6-inch irrigation valve at the high point for developing acreage and beginning to lay out. The cultivation of wine grapes is sustainable within Willcox Basin. Vineyards do not draw more water than the average rainfall. They should be classified as sustainable agriculture. With proper vineyard management, unplanted areas, rows, and unagricultural natural arroyos can be converted to flow into retention and recharge basins. Grapes are sustainable water crop in this region. Vines are drip irrigated and require 8 to 10 gallons per day. These practices can put vineyards further on the minus side of water usage per acre. The Arizona wine industry is an economic engine for the entire state, Cochise County, and the city of Willcox. It positively impacts jobs, income, business revenue, and taxes. Wine tourism is a direct effect on local hotels, restaurants, and other businesses in this region. Times have changed since the legislation of an AMA was enacted in 1980. It was created to manage water basins that had both groundwater and surface water for implementation of urban development. The Willcox Basin does not have surface water resources and no potential for urban development. A better solution than the AMA needs to be developed to reduce water overdraft and improve the recharge of the water in the basin. Thank
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Next up is Barbara Pierce. After that will be Robert Carlson.
My name is Barbara Pierce, B-A-R-B-A-R-A-P-I-E-R-C-E. I am here to represent the Arizona Wine Growers Association. On behalf of the Arizona Wine Growers Association, AWGA, we'd like to express our opposition to the designation of the active management area within the Willcox Ground Basin. The implementation of such a program would have a devastating effect on the Arizona vibrant grape and wine industry and prevent it from realizing its potential. As the industry more fully develops in recent decades, it was with express intent of finding cultivating wine grapes that require low water usage and are fit for Arizona's dry conditions. Therefore, the AWGA feels that subjecting wine growers and vineyards to the regulation of this imposed AMA is the wrong approach. To the industry that has made a conscious effort to be good stewards of the state's water resources. Since 1981, AWGA has worked to advocate on behalf of wine growers across Arizona and would like to point out that wine growing is a rapid emerging industry in the state, with average nearly doubling from 2012 to 2017, from 942 to 1,500 acres, and the acres of grapes continuing to increase. While 75% of the grapes grown in Arizona wine production is grown in the Willcox groundwater basin, the water, coupled with the unique fertile soil in this region, are vital to the continued advancement of Arizona wine. The industry has grown tenfold, with bonded wineries from 12 in 1999 to 156 in 2022. This growth continues to be a natural fit for tourism and Arizona's top export industry, and it's critical for park tourism success. In summary, Arizona wine grapes are low water use, high value crop, and the establishment of an AMA in the Willcox groundwater basin would have a serious and irreparable negative consequence not only to AWGA members, but on the Arizona wine industry overall. It would severely inhibit its ability to grow grapes, manufacture its wine, and produce high quality economic development through rural Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Next up is Robert Carlson, and then after that, Chad Preston.
Thank you. My name is Robert Carlson. I speak on behalf of myself and my winery and vineyard, Carlson Creek. I'd like to echo Pierce's comments. I think the AMA is a blunt instrument that will.
Just a little bit closer. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
The AMA is a blunt instrument that I think should not be implemented by fiat in light of the inclusive movement. I think the AMA is something that is a last resort. I also think that at this point in time, working with the local constituencies to find a more nuanced way to manage this water, because everyone agrees it's a problem. We don't think that AMA is the solution to that problem. Governor and the director think twice before doing that, especially in light of the fact that a lot of the evidence that we presented here is anecdotal and review, and I'm not sure it will stand the the ultimate resolution that may be sought by some entities associated with this. I urge you to try to work with us and find a way that can work better. And I know everyone has a lot of suggestions that might work better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Up next is Chad Preston, and after that will be John Palaz.
I'm Chad Preston, CHADPRESTON. My wife and I own Birds and Barrels Vineyards. We moved from Mesa, Arizona 15 years ago. It's hard to follow my colleagues. They hit all the main points, so I'm just going to kind of hit a little bit on what we're thinking about this AMA. We're opposed to the AMA, and we're not just winemakers and grape growers, we're your neighbors, okay? I am very empathetic to people's foundations breaking, wells collapsing, but if you can't pass this AMA, if this goes through, nothing will change, except there won't be any expansion. All these huge people pumping water, it will stay the same. It will be grandfathered in, and all these graphs, they'll just continue to go down. We are at zero groundwater overdraft in our vineyard, and we actually are experimenting with technology that we can actually reduce the water by another 40%, but it's not going to change it. The AMA will not change groundwater overdraft. It will only stifle growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Next up is John Palaz. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that wrong.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is John Bolts, JOHN-BOELTS. I serve as the president of Arizona Farm Bureau Federation. Arizona agriculture sector significantly contributes to the state's economy, providing an economic benefit of nearly $31 billion, ensuring local and national food security, preserving open space, and offering continuous watershed management. In 2022, the voters of Cochise County clearly expressed their opposition to such measures by rejecting Proposition 420, which aimed to designate the Willcox groundwater basin as an AMA. Given this recent decision by the community, we implore the governor and APWR to respect the electorate's will and collaborate with their legislative representatives to protect both the environmental integrity and economic vitality of this basin, as well as others throughout the state. This action comes at a time when legislative proposals, which have been under constructive negotiation, were poised to introduce sustainable changes to Arizona's groundwater management structure. The agricultural community has invested considerable time and effort over the past year to develop a regulatory framework that would be suitable for our rural communities, especially those identified as critical basins. This collaborative effort has produced legislation offering alternatives to the establishment of new AMAs in areas where they are not appropriate for addressing groundwater challenges such as the Willcox Basin. An AMA designation is not merely a square peg in a round hole. It's a fundamentalist match of a solution to problems that exist here in the Cochise Basin. And really, it's a solution. It's not really a solution at all. Farmers in Cochise should be growing cattle, beans, chili, corn, and not worrying about whether their faces will end up on the side of a milk carton that's missing people. It's time to face the issues, and it's time to address it legislatively and not institute AMA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bolts. Next up is Joanna Steely, and then after that will be Jacques Vanderlord.
And we're not going to pull anything else together. That's it. Good night. Here she comes. She said no time. She kept me there 3 minutes.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Steely, Joanna, S-E-7-E-E-L-Y. I'd like to ask these folks back here, one, how many actually read the to resolve this. I have been working with people through the flyer for the last year, and we have been fighting against tax power for the Willcox flyer. They want to come in and they want to drill for lithium. 500,000 gallons of water per 1 metric ton of lithium produced. Can we afford that? No, we can't. But can we get people?
Excuse me, miss, could you direct her, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Can we get people to actually work on these committees? No. Everybody talks and talks and talks. They have blinders on. They can't see the overall program. We need people who will work with us to try to solve this problem. We don't need a bunch of hollering and clapping and everything. We need people who will work. The governor put together a committee called Rural Groundwater Area Committee, or something like that. And it was in the ballot on 2022. It stated that the governor would put a committee together. It had a beautiful resolution to this. It had to go to the Natural Resources and Energy Committee. It didn't even get it out of there. Why? Because the chairman did not want a people solution. She wanted it her own self. So she put together SB 1221, which did not go through. It did not pass. So here we are still. We are not solving anything. We've got to solve it. The AMA is not perfect, but by golly, it's better than nothing. Our house has 3 cracks in it. Our patio is sinking. We have fissures about a half a mile away from the house.
I'm sorry, you're at your 3 minutes.
Okay, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Seeley.
Thank you, Joanne.
Next up is Jacques Vanderloo. After that will be James Schmidt.
My name is Jacques Vanderloo. It's spelled like Jacqueus, and my last name is Vanderlij. I'm farming 10 miles north of this town. What I have to say is that this looks like election interference, because we voted 2 years ago and the vote was overwhelming no on this bill. And now something changed. Let's put it on the ballot again in 2 years from now and vote over it. Because that's the democratic way where everybody talks about it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is James Schmidt. After that will be Philip Asher.
I'm James Schmidt of Grandview. The late great final rate at the most 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I've been in government for 29 years. I'm very familiar with it. As was said, we voted no on the AMA. Because the governor decided we needed an AMA. So she's imposing her will upon us. And we said no. There's no one in this room that wastes water. I know a lot of these people in the room. I'm the USDA guy in this county for 10 years. These people don't waste water. We know there's a drought. You're telling us the presentation was very nice. You told us what we already knew, that there's a water issue. An AMA, which I think half of the members on that board of that AMA will be out of Phoenix, who have no interest in this county, federal business being in this county, telling this county what to do with its water. If you want to form some kind of organization, it's not necessarily an AMA, then that's fine. But it should be made up 100% of Cochise County people, because they're the ones that have the vested interest in it. You know, I looked it up. I didn't find where the state of Arizona owns the water. Water on my property belongs to me. Water on the property of these people out here belongs to them. That's a fact. There's no law that says that it is. So why does the governor think that she has the ability to tell us what to do with our property and with our water? There's an absolute fact. Cochise County is an agricultural county. Without agriculture, with no water, there's no agriculture. When there's no water, there are no people. That's an absolute fact. It isn't much. Now, these people all come from Phoenix. You have an AMA in Phoenix, you would have said. There's 612 swimming pools up there. Get an average use annual basis of 17 days. And it has a 100% evaporation rate based on your own information. What about the 11th water? You use 500,000 gallons of water. You're allowing that on your AMA. Meaning, if you want to come down here and tell us how to use that water, you're allowing that to occur. Golf courses, 800,000 gallons a day. 800,000, 219 golf courses in this town. We have fountains, we have slip and slides, we have all kinds of things that use water. And you want to tell these people, myself, how big my garden can be, that I can expand my crops, but I can't use more water. I can put more cows on my ranch, but I can't use more water. How in the world is that good management? Who came up with that kind of thing? That's not good management. That's not looking out for people in Cochise County. We do have a problem. There are people here who have an absolute problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Philip Esbury. After that will be Philip Russell.
Thank you for being here. I'm Philip Asbury, P-H-I-P-A-S-B-U-R-Y. I'm a pastor here in Canada. For over 20 years, I did agricultural studies for the local utility. Almost everything we said today, we could have said in 1975. Nothing has changed. The patterns of the scale would be a little different. The F shape of your curve is not rain. It's because the irrigated acreage dropped from 175,000 acres to 50,000, and we've been tumbleweeds for about 20 years. No jobs. Look into that, okay? Thank you. We did vote, and I think people ought to be listening to that vote, but we didn't get to vote on the solution. We need to help one another, and probably we need a district, water basin wide, to help people with these problems. Help them deepen their wells when they need to, help them solve structural problems and fill in the fissures or whatever. We need to help one another. I noticed here if all pumping stopped today, it would take over 280 years for the aquifer to recover. Is that the goal? To preserve our resources or to wisely use our resources? You showed how the water tables are dropping. You didn't show how deep the water is. You said we pump 5 to 7 million gallons. How much is there? How much have we used? I worked with the Ag Extension Service, just cooperating with them. They recommended when we could no longer grow the crops of the 70s that we put in 3 crops and dairies. And we improve our irrigation efficiency. We did that, didn't we? After everybody's done what they ought to do, it's not their fault. We want our kids and grandkids to have jobs too. So we do need to solve the problem. We need to look more at what the real situation is instead of a statewide, state-centered solution. And again, we need to know how much of the resource have we used? Are we in danger of depleting it, or have we just dropped it 5%? What's the deal? Obviously, though, when somebody's house starts falling down, that's a problem, and we need to be willing to help solve that problem. So I don't think we're really talking about all the problem realistically. And this is not new. I've been working on this since the 70s. And some of the people in Phoenix don't sound, it sounds new to some of those folks. So let's actually let's look at the facts, and let's work together to help one another, right? Yeah. I don't want to see that without this particular solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is public comment. After that will be State Representative Lupe Diaz.
Good afternoon, once again. 3 months ago, I told all of you,
Please speak into the mic, please.
I told, my name is Philip Plump, I'm opposed to the AMA. 3 months ago, at the last meeting, I told all of you to call me up and we would go look and recharge. There's only one man come to my house to look for recharge, and he is, I think, the second in command to the the Attorney General. Anyway, none of the rest of you called me, no nothing, not a peep from me. He actually spent that time, took like 4 hours of his day to go listen to me. Poor fella. Took him out and got him lost in the bushes. But anyway, I understand that everybody feels for the people that water has depleted and whatever. But I don't know nothing about it, Rick. All I know is counts. Been here since, my family's been here since 1904. We watched it go from 6 foot to whatever it was. Okay? It's just the act of God, because it has not rained since the great flood that God created. And it hasn't rained real good since 1998. Okay. So if you guys want to talk about recharge, come to my house. I'll give you my number again. It's 520-253-0742. If you want to talk about recharge, I can help you. Otherwise, I'm going home. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Pump. Next up is State Representative Lupe Diaz. After that will be Jesse Davis.
Hello, my name is Lupe Diaz, L-U-P-E-D-I-A-Z, and I'm the state representative. Imposing an AMA is not something that I'm looking forward to here. I think there are much better solutions, and as we've heard from the people today, and that's who I represent, that they don't want an AMA. There is a problem here, and I do believe that there's a local solution. And many of you have already stated much of the concerns and the facts that are hitting the area. The economy in Cochise County is going to go down because of the limitation, and also the coming against the agriculture. The property values are going to be, those are things that many of the people are concerned with. We don't need that AMA. Director, I hope that you're hearing that. And the governor, I hope that you're hearing that as well. The AMA was vetoed 2 years ago, and we were here during that process and helped that process. And I think that we need to make sure that we honor the voice of the people. This is a unilateral decision that the governor is trying to do through the director of ADWR, which is not the right. And again, there's a lot of you that have invested a lot of time here. I do believe that the solution is a local solution. I've heard many of you speak of a local solution out here, and what we need to do is give it a little bit more time to be able to get that done. Many believe that legislature has failed failed you. I can tell you that we have worked hard to try to come up with several solutions. Governor, as far as I've counted, has vetoed, she has vetoed several. I'm looking at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's been opposed by the other side. 6 bills that were specifically aimed at the Willcox water basin, and there have been in one of the bills that has been worked on, there was over 112 meetings that were conducted to be able to help solve some of this at the legislative level, and we've just been hit an impasse with the governor. And then for her to come in and veto, to impose an AMA, I just found that, egregious to be able to hear that. There are solutions, and some of you have already talked about that. Recharge, augmentation, the conservation of water is important. And also there are alternative water studies that are going on right now that are not matching the Willcox water basin. The University of Arizona and others are also looking at that as well. So thank you very much. Let's stand together and not see this AMA come through, come up with some solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Next up is Jesse Davis. After that will be Mike Ware.
Gifford, dude.
My name is Jesse Davis, J-E-S-S-E, Davis, D-A-V-I-S. My operations is Sierra Leone Ranch, which is northwest of Willcox, at the periphery of your map, with no well monitoring of sorts by your group. I call it a group because it seems like it's unfairly biased, and you're lumping this entire valley together as one water source. I have a hard time with the data that's being presented because I do not feel it's sufficiently done. Measuring the static water level of wells. If you're going to impose a restriction on the entire valley, I suggest you measure every single well. And that includes every homeowner's well, as well as every agricultural well. My water levels have not dropped substantially, maybe 10 feet in 25 years. That's on only a couple of my wells. Some of the ones that aren't being pumped have not dropped at all. 0. If an AMA goes through, and I have not garnered grandfather's rights through capital investment, you are taking 60% of my land value away from my property. My loan officer is not going to like that. The property rights and the property values are 2 paramount problems with the structure of this AMA. I also am a member of the Cattle Growers Association. I'm on 2 water councils. I'm on 2 water committees. I'm a former board member of the Cattle Growers. My family has been in this area for 6 generations. 1872 we arrived. I have farming acreage, I have farmable acreage, and I have ground that I rent out to a neighboring farmer. We present, everybody here is, not everybody, but people who are like-minded as I am, do not feel that the AMA is a proper solution. There are other solutions available. I'm also a member of the newly formed Sulphur Springs Water Alliance that was formulated because we heard the governor might want to put an AMA in. And we wanted to come together with a cohesive group, which started as what I consider a think tank, to come together and bring in all sorts of different perspectives. We were going along at a pretty good clip considering the different perspectives that were in that group. And unfortunately, on October 23rd, noting the timing and its proximity to November 5th, the governor decided that that was going to be a good time to put in an AMA.
You reached your agreement, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mike Ware. After that will be Alan Ross.
Mike Ware, M-I-K-E-W-E-A-R. I'm a fifth generation Willcox born rancher. My family's been in this valley a long time. We've seen the water woes consistently. And those woes have not changed in my whole lifetime, my 66 years. They've been the same. There's winners and losers, as I heard somebody else speak earlier. If you own the good water, that's your tenant right to that water. That water belongs to you and your land. And for the state to come in and say that I can't do something with my water is absolutely undemocratic, in my opinion. We took a vote, we didn't want it. Now the governor comes in and wants to apply Maricopa County issues to Cochise County. It's not going to work. I don't see how it can begin to work. I go back on my wells. I heard Jesse Davis talk about his wells not dropping. I heard Robbie Sproul talk about his wells not dropping. I just had 2 pumps replaced on my wells. Not one static inch has gone in 10 years. And I live off from the eastern slopes, the western slopes of the Cherokee Mountains. So we're in a recharge, but you're lumping all of us and decreasing our land values because you're lumping all of us into the problem that exists elsewhere. We are the recharge areas. You're causing us to have land devaluations because we're in a recharge area. And it's got to rain to recharge. Like Philip Plum said, if we don't have recharge, we can't do nothing. How much water's down there? You don't know. None of us know. How much are we using? For the sustainability of it, we need to think about those parts of it. Not just continue to sell. We're pumping it out. You go buy a piece of property, you base your piece of property values on the amount of water that's beneath it. That's why you got good areas we got areas that they build homes. There's no water there, but the land was cheap. Well, why do you think the land was cheap to begin with? It was cheap because there was no water there to begin with. My values have not, I'm trying to hurry. My static levels have not dropped. And I saw on one of those maps up there, you got a dot where I had ADW come out and check a well. They said your static is not dropped. But your little pointer didn't go to that well and say, hey, you only focused in that magenta area, that purple area on your map. Think about the outlying areas. Again, I'm opposed to the AMA, and I think the Governor Hobbs should have never, ever gone to the extent to utilize some sort of order to the director to do such a thing to impact us in Cochise County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Next up is Alan Ross. After that will be Rod Nealon.
My name is Alan Ross. The last name is spelled R-O-B-B-S. Born and raised here. My dad started farming here in 1955, and we've been involved in agriculture my whole life here. And what my dad always said was the only thing hell needs is water. And so, when we're farming, what we're always thinking about is conserving water, and the people that are farming are not wasting the water right now because they know it's the most valuable resource they have. But the AMA, I think, it's not going to help anything because the people who are already pumping have already got their wells established, and it's only going to hurt people who might come down here and have a little homestead for 5 or 10 acres or start a little vineyard. It's going to penalize all those people, and it's not going to really affect anything that I can see except our whole economy in a negative way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Up next is Rob Healy. After that will be Jacob Archer.
My name is Rob Keeling, K-E-L-I-N-G. My wife Jane Schaefer and I own Keeling Schaefer Vineyards. We've been here 25 years of March. Also the president of the Cochise County Wine Council, which is a local winery group with 17 members. And we are all on Willcox based we developed a position in opposition to the ADA policy. As everybody in this room knows, we paid almost 64. So that was the public respected that was to our
Sir, would you mind speaking a little bit closer to the mic? Thank you.
our partnership still continues to was the creation of this company by the administrative board. There's one person in the state that can enact an AMA, an administrative order, and that is the director of the department. So he has to take full responsibility for whatever he starts to do. But I would like to, my job today, we've heard a lot of issues about why the AMA will work. Everybody understands the water problem that exists. However, my job today is to kind of punch a few holes into your data. And so the first thing I want to talk about is we'll go down my list of the criteria that will allow the director to enact an AMA. What are the practices that are necessary to preserve the existence of our groundwater future needs? Number one, we haven't conducted a flow model. This is all based on the 2023 supply and demand report that you guys have published and it's online. It may be made by the room. You have not, by your own discussion, or by your own admission, that you have not conducted a groundwater flow model, which I think would be pretty important to justify an AMA. Number two, all the results of the assessment and the actual report are based on models. They're not all empirical. Number three, the baseline data of assessment indicates that in 2022, the demand was 14.4% of the supply. That's our demand. The withdrawal of water in this basin was 14.4% less than it was in 2005. We talked about that today. That's, in addition, it was 1.25% less on the 30-year average. So the water use is actually going down, even in spite of the additional acres that we've seen over the last 15 years. If we get grandfather rights, which is a function, they may have the person to do is identify irrigators, and you're going to give them grandfather rights. We're going to transfer a general right to
Sorry, you reached your 3 minutes.
we continue to oppose the AMA, and we would encourage you all to submit an statement.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. After that will be State Representative Stacey Travers.
My name is Jacob Karchner, JCOB-KARTCHNER. I'm here representing the Cochise Grand Cowboys Association, representing over 130 families that have been land stewards for generations, over hundreds of thousands of acres that are going to be affected by this. What I'm here to do today is read you a water policy that we've come up with. So ranchers play a critical part in water conservation and management. Our intent is to protect water and its usage for future generations of farmers and ranchers. Cochise Grand Cattle Growers Association supports the following for all watersheds, basins, aquifers, and other sources of water. We support the protection of local farmers and ranchers' beneficial use of water for agriculture. We support protection of historic surface and groundwater rights. We support encouraging comprehensive hydraulic and geologic studies by independent third-party entities in order to obtain the necessary data for determination of aquifer characteristics and informed decision-making. We support the development of viable aquifer recharge areas, adoption and implementation of voluntary water conservation practices, local planning and development for water management, including within management areas. And we also support upholding the prohibition on the interbasin transfer of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kircher. Next up is State Representative Stacey Travers. Stacy Travers. All right, we'll move on to State Representative Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. After that will be Aka Alex Cordell.
Stephanie Stahl Hamilton, S-T-E-P-H-A-N-I-E, S-T-A-H-L-H-A-M-I-L-T-O-N. My name is Stephanie Stahl Hamilton, and I am proud to represent Legislative District 21, which encompasses portions of Pima, Santa Cruz, and Cochise counties. I grew up in rural Arizona and have seen firsthand the challenges that rural communities face with our water supplies, which guides so much of my work at the legislature. During my time in the legislature, I am lucky to have gotten to know and listen to so many of the Willcox locals and learn about their deeply concerning water issues. These amazing people, their tenacity and relentless pursuit to find solutions to their groundwater depletion is why I am here today. I have mixed emotions about this hearing. On the one hand, I am enthusiastic that they are finally being heard. The science is being followed, and an active management area is finally being considered. Based on the ADWR presentation given on September 26th, the Willcox Basin is more than qualified for an AMA designation. But on the other hand, I also feel like we failed the people of the Willcox Basin by not developing an alternative local groundwater management tool that truly mitigates the excessive groundwater depletion. Our lack of action has resulted directly in too many wells going dry and people's livelihoods ruined. And I wanted to take a minute to put one thing on the record that is important for the people served by the Willcox Basin to know. We've heard that Senate Bill 1221 is the answer. It is not the answer, and simple math will illustrate this. The Willcox Supply and Demand Study projects that for every 1 acre foot of water entering the basin, about 3 acre-feet are being sucked out. That's a 300% water withdrawal in comparison to what is being returned to the basin. SB 1221 only allows for a maximum of 15% reduction in water conservation. The math doesn't add up. Water depletion will continue at an alarming rate. While we continue to negotiate with those in power to develop a more flexible, meaningful solution, it bears repeating that an AMA is simply the only option available today that even approaches being able to provide relief to this community. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I stand alongside the locals served by the Willcox Basin in full support of science and ask the ADWR to follow the science by designating an AMA. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Aka Alex Cordell, and after that would be Melanie Lawrence. Next would be Melanie Lawrence. After that would be Carol Walton.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for being here at this meeting. I am here in support of the AMA. Melanie Lawrence, A-L-A-N-I-E-L-A-W-R-E-N. I am a resident of Cochise County and the Willcox Basin. I am here to speak about the residents that are being affected by this lack of an AMA. I want to point out that water is not red, it's not blue, and it's not green. This is not a partisan issue, and I get upset when our issues are being dismissed, our concerns are being dismissed as radical environmental extremism. I believe that many of the measures that have been put before the legislature are smoke and mirrors and are not substantial answers to the issues that we face. My understanding is that there is flexibility in how the management plan is created so that the AMA would have some flexibility to address the concerns of ranchers, farmers, and ag users. I also believe that there was a lot of misinformation that went out before the 2022 AMA issue was on the ballot. I personally know of people that told me that their personal wells were going to be measured, and I tried to correct this information, and they were not willing to listen to. They had been told that, no, this was going to be a top-down government coming in and telling them how much water they could use in their personal wells. So I believe that part of the reason why the ballot measure failed was because there was a lot of misinformation, and there was the idea that there were all kinds of solutions that were going to be put forward, and I have not seen anything, nothing substantial has been put before the people as a solution. So I'll leave it at that. I understand the concerns of the ranchers, the farmers, and so forth that say that their livelihoods are going to be diminished, but I am part of the economy of this area, just as much as they are. I pay my taxes, I live and work in this area, and I'm retired, but I do work part-time. So anyway, I am just as much a part of the economy as anybody else here. And when my well drops to the point that I'm going to have to somehow find $40,000 or $50,000 to put into casing it further down, I just want to know that, if someone's willing to, start a GoFundMe project so that I can deepen my well, I'm all for it. But otherwise, we need something substantial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence. Next up is Carol Walton, and after that, Bob Unger. Carol Walton. We'll move on to Bob Unger. No Bob Unger. Next will be Steve Kessel.
My name is Steve Kissel, S-E-E-D-E-K-I-S-I-E-L. I live in the southern part of the Willcox Basin, been living here for 25 years, 60-year resident of Arizona. I understand the stark reality of living in the desert climate, especially in the middle of a 30-year drought. It's frustrating. I've been working on this issue now for almost 4 years. And it's frustrating to hear so much misinformation today about what an AMA will not do and what's going on with our water basin. I applaud AWR's efforts to try to give us the best information available. I firmly believe that the hydrology folks at AWR are presenting this information without any bias and are trying to help us understand what's happening here.
don't believe AWR's data today. Reality is, wells are going dry all across the basin. My well went dry almost 12 years ago to the date. It's been dropping an average of 4.5 feet over 30 years now. We just had the well sweep here in the Willcox Basin last couple weeks ago at AWR. I had people calling me from all over the basin. Our well went down 10 feet. My well went down 5 feet. These are not short-term trends either. These are long-term trends. We've been seeing this. If you live in the Sun Zone area now, you're lucky if your well's not dropping 10 feet. What do you say to those folks? Do you know what they live next to? Have you ever looked at a satellite photo of all those cemeteries? They're right next to their land. New cemeteries, most of them. We cannot go on like this. We've got to come together as a community. We've got people that are being deeply affected, seriously affected. You saw the picture of Janet Randall's house. It's practically half. You can say that science isn't real, but to her it's real. She's got gaps in her house 2 to 3 inches where the walls are cracked. She's waiting. She's just hoping her house doesn't collapse on her before she dies. This is a serious issue, and we all need to be well informed. There were a number of issues that were raised here today about what an AMA will and will not do. The reality is, AMA is not perfect. And I totally support a better solution. But we need an AMA today. Because when I drove in today, I saw 3 new fields being cleared. There's another field on 191 right across the Curry Farms that was started being cleared. 440 acres for trees. Every one of those is another straw in the ground that's going to deepen all of our water flows. We can't deny it. Sure, there are folks that live on the periphery of the basin, and their wells may be stable or going up. But that's not the overall picture. 90% or more of all the wells in this basin are going down. Take your heads out of the sand and wake up. The land is inside 3 up to 3.5 inches. Bishops are thrown dramatically. We need to do something now. AMA is our only solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Kathy Collins, and then will be Ben Minges.
Kathy Collins, C-A-T-H-Y-C-O-L-I-N, that's my husband is looking. Quote E.M. Tiffany, I believe in the future of agriculture with a faith born not of words but of deeds. We are concerned about the availability of water. Our future depends on it, just as the future of our towns depends on it. We believe in the future of a safe and abundant life in our valley. Our family has been farming here since 1952, that's 72 years. And we hope to be able to pass the farm on to the 4th and 5th generations. We have a son moving home to the farm in 2026. Joshua is a plumber and his wife is a registered nurse. Our youngest son, Jonathan, is on his mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Upon his return in 2 years, he will continue his education at the University of Arizona in agronomy and has plans to live in the Willcox area after his graduation. Another of our sons, Jacob, and his family moved here 3 years ago this summer. He is an Empire Cat certified technician, and his wife is an APRO certified gymnast instructor. Having completed 3 years of experience working on the farm, he is preparing to use the first-time farmer services at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He has been planning to make some improvements on our farm to increase viability and sustainability for the future. These plans do not include drilling new wells, but using land in different ways. Our future depends on there being water for many years to come in this valley. We are committed to being a part of the solution, as all water users should be. In 22, the local community spoke. The process was followed to put it on the ballot, and more than 61% of the voters voted to not have an AMA in the Willcox Basin. The decision was made by those who live and work in the Willcox Basin. We strongly believe that it is wrong for someone from the government office in Phoenix to completely ignore the results of an overwhelming certified vote and mandate a rule that will not improve our current situation. I am here to state that an AMA will not solve our water problems in this valley. An AMA will not make the earth fissures close up or the earth repair itself where subsidence has occurred. The AMA will not curtail current water use levels. Let's pursue legislation that can really help. We agree some regulations should be put in place. These regulations should address directly the use of water in the valley. Our valley needs any fees collected to pay for planning and projects to improve our water outlook and alleviate our homeowners' worries. Designating an AMA does not guarantee funds to stay in our area or local control. We believe our farm has a bright future. The future will bring changes in our farming practices and possibly our cropping choices. We look forward to the challenge and the changes. We are concerned about those who do not have access to water at their homes. These are conversations we should be having to come up with solutions. We see why an AMA sounds like it solves problems that we are having, but an AMA will squelch the ability for local community to find workable, useful, localized solutions. We ask the director, Willcox, and any advisors he may counsel make this decision with careful consideration.
Next up is Ben Hedges. After that will be Timothy Plum.
My name is Ben Henges, Benenges. I'm a Graham County cattle rancher. State government looks at the data they obtain of water levels declining and they say, wow, we need more control. I look at the data of groundwater declining with initial skepticism, and then I say, well, if that's true, Willcox may need a large water infrastructure project to bring more water to this area. Willcox needs more water resources transferred to this basin, and who better to take that on than the Arizona Department of Water Resources? That's the win-win solution. Yet you, the state government, seek governmental control as an obvious lose for this valley's economy. How can this valley ever hope to grow if the solution of bringing more water into this basin is ignored? If a large water infrastructure project were to be undertaken to bring more water into the Willcox Basin, it would hardly be the largest water project Arizona has ever undertaken. More water evaporates out of Tempe Town Lake in 3 days in the summer than my cows drink in a year. My ranch feeds 5,670 American families every year, and we use our water effectively, and that's what you hope to suppress. Shame on DWR for not undertaking a more reasonable option for Willcox. Shame on the governor for not being here, or at least the director for not being present at this meeting. And that alone says that they don't care about the economy of this area.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Timothy Plum, and then it'll be Ben Migas.
Hello, my name is Timothy Plum. I'm a fifth generation rancher in this valley. I'm against the NA. We've had a lot of water. Wells go dry in my life, my grandpa's life. Before that, my great grandpa, wells in this area go dry. That's just part of life of living here. And as far as it goes, the fishers, my great grandpa almost died in Fisher because they pop up everywhere. It's always been here. There's always been fishers. But anyways, we had a government, we had a vote. We said we didn't want the MA. We want to have the community. We want to have this area open for the people in the future to figure out how to live here. Because there's things about this country. It has thorns, it has everything. It wants to kill you. Everything wants to make you run out of water. And that's just life here. So the people that live here, we got to know it. And I want you to tell everybody, whenever they think about moving down here, because you get on the internet and you say, what's the cheapest place to live in Arizona? And they say, oh look, I can buy a ranch for 40 acres down here. And then it's cheap. Yeah, it's cheap. Tell them that there's no water, tell them not to come. We don't need it. We don't need a bunch of whiny ass people. So just tell the governor, she needs to quit drinking so much wine, put her on the Holy Ghost and grapes. Okay? Tell her to get down here, she needs to be here with us. If she's going to take away our rights, take away everything we've got, this isn't something like, oh, I'm getting retired for years. I got my INA for my thing. I'm sorry, but I got my retirement plan. We got a retirement plan. You invested it in your kid's future. My grandma invested in my future. His dad invested in theirs. We're not getting rich out here. Tell her to quit messing with everything, and we're gonna. I've had 15 wells to a dry in my lifetime. It had nothing to do with pumping. It had to do with there's no rain. We gotta adapt. We gotta change. There's no government mandate gonna change that. They're not gonna make my wells come back. I am gonna be here after all you guys retire. You guys live in Washington. You guys live in Georgia. You probably don't even live in this country. You're probably gonna live somewhere else. So the thing is, I'm going to be here. That little part right there is going to be there too. There isn't going to be any well that goes dry that's going to dry me out. There's not going to be any government that dries me out either. So anyways, that's all I need to say. You guys can think that you're doing a lot. It's not science. What these wells drying up, you said you got the shallow water going dry. Everybody here knows that you got shallow water and then there's a clay layer. And it goes down 400 feet. So you drill more wells. All the shallow water is going to go down because it's sucking all the shallow water out and it's making it go down to the deep levels. Everybody knows that. You can listen to every single well out there and you know all the shallow water is draining. Because you have a deep well that's going to drain all the shallow water. You guys aren't doing science. You guys are doing manipulation tactics. It isn't science what you're doing. I have not seen a comprehensive study of this water table at all. You guys don't have comprehensive studies. All you do is look at a well and pay someone to go around and study.
Mr. Cox, you reached your time limit.
Thank you guys. But I don't really appreciate you being here. I really wish you weren't here.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Next up is Trisha Figueroa. She is on Representative William Wimmer. Trisha, are you able to unmute yourself online? Trisha, are you able to unmute yourself online?
Yes. Yay, success. Thank you. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. This is Trisha Gerrod, T-R-I-C-I-A, Gerrodette. I have watched the struggles in both the Willcox and the Douglas basins over their water issues, and follow what Douglas is now working on. And if an AMA is declared here in the Willcox Basin, I hope people who have expressed such concern will continue to participate, because it's in the crafting of a management plan that all the ideas for how to take care of the issues, those levels of details are taken care of at that level. And so your concerns are quite valid and will be useful and helpful in crafting the plan. Just want to point out that under the state law, that there are criteria for declaring an AMA, as ADWR showed at the beginning of this meeting. And it seems clear to me that the Willcox Basin qualifies pretty clearly under criteria number 1 and number 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up online as well is William Wimmer, and after that will be our final online speaker, Nab Athwal.
Can you hear me already?
Yes, we can.
I'm William Wimmer. I represent one investor on a small first generational farm. So thanks for listening to all of us, and I am glad not to be in your shoes right now. We all understand that there's a problem, and the department has presented its justification for executive action in bypassing the political process to establish the AMA. However, given the department's data, we reasonably conclude that the AMA is still going to allow for the water table to be completed at its current rate until all the water is obliterated entirely. The residents of Willcox have been led to the conclusion that the AMA is going to benefit conspicuously unnamed special interests while punishing the residents of the Willcox Basin. I'd like to concur with Mr. Hodges' request for appropriate regulations to allow for small farmers to apply for rights to irrigate a reasonable area of land in the jurisdiction of the AMA. And please continue to invite and engage the local stakeholders, the farmers, the ranchers, the vineyards, and others whose livelihood depends on the water. They can't just get a job. There's no city in Willcox. And for reasonable compromise on establishing a appropriate regulatory framework going forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Nav Athwal, also online, and then will be Madonna Burgess in person.
Hello and thank you. My name is Nav Athwal, N-A-V-A-T-H-W-A-L. I farm with my mother, brother, and wife in Willcox. I want to first just say thank you to ADWR on their thorough presentation and all the data. I really appreciate the comments from the public. They've been really informative. I just have a few things I wanted to say. One is in 2015, there was an attempt to create an IMA in the San Simon Basin. It was initiated by landowners and ultimately rejected by the director. The director noticed and agreed there was a decline in groundwater, but stated that based on the data available, there's not enough data to clearly show that there's not enough water for the foreseeable future. A lot of the hydrologic conditions in that basin were very similar to Willcox, yet the director decided to reject a landowner initiative proposal at the time, and now is proposing the same initiative for Willcox. I'm in full agreement that some form of water regulation is necessary. Whether you're a resident or a farmer, you cannot live or grow crops without water. Water is necessary for all living things, and when there's not enough of it, you have to approach it with caution and conservation at top of mind. A lot of landowners today and farmers have stated that a collaborative, local-based approach would be better. I'm in full agreement of that. We're currently relying on a law that's 44 years old. That hasn't changed since it was initially enacted to create water policy 40 years later. Things have changed, economies have changed, and I believe that the law is just not enough anymore to account for all the circumstances. As you've heard from landowners, some live in areas where there is no subsidence and where groundwater is not being depleted, and others live in areas where the houses have cracks on the bottom. I think a area-by-area approach that incentivizes conservation and recharge through public monies passed by the legislature is a much better way than having an AMA that treats everyone equally. For example, in Douglas, I believe, although that was a voter-approved initiative and the goals were were appropriate, the ultimate management plan is not based on science. It's not based on data. It's based purely on what folks feel is right for certain crops and certain growers, and I just don't think that document provides a good future for Douglas, and I think we go down the path of a AMA in Willcox. I fear we're going to go down that same path, hamstring a lot of growers and a lot of the economy here, and we're going to prevent not only the economy from flourishing, but we're also going to use an archaic law to create legislation 40 years later. I thank you again for your time today and for allowing me to comment.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is LaDonna Burgess in person. After that will be Rich Ivano-Waski.
notice big door prize when they get done. My name's Ladonna Burgess, LADONNA, BURGESS. And I'm here as a retired person who chose to move here and raise my boys in an agriculture community where there's cowboys and tractors and John Deeres. I want to thank all of you farmers and ranchers for taking a beautiful sunshine day when I know you have a lot of work to do at home and come here because this is a really important meeting. For God's sake, the election's over. We should all be getting along. I've seen more happier people than what I've seen around here today. I've never seen such long faces. We are concerned. We know that water's a problem. People need to get the facts and we need to work together. I grew up on my grandpa's homestead and ranch in South Dakota, and water was a commodity. We had to wash our hair, wash our underwear, and then scrub the floor in the same bucket of water, so I know conservation. As a SSDEC's energy management, and I was an irrigation specialist for 35 years, and Bill Asbury, who worked, and we studied the loads, and we worked with the irrigators. I've seen conservation improve 1,000%. Most of the people here are too young to remember when there used to be pumpbacks of water running down the ditches everywhere in our valley. And I've seen technology. I mean, now the farmers have moisture gadgets in their field, and there's nobody with more wisdom and caring for our nature and our earth and our God-given country than farmers and ranchers. And it's nice to see the politicians come down here from Phoenix because it sure would put a lot of pollution in your Phoenix area, all these pickups and diesels would have went driving up to the Capitol. So thank you for being here. Knowing a little bit about water use and irrigation use, keep in mind that residential areas where there's a small community of houses, they use more water than a farm. Water conservation needs to start at home with kids, and I started the International Science and Engineering Fair at Sulphur Springs many years ago, and our youth, they got the answers. Reach out to them, do science projects, because we're seeing technologies improve unbelievable. My grandpa wouldn't believe the way that we do farming and agriculture, and it's a way of life that we in the valley like to live. And I want to thank everybody for coming because we need to work together now and make this a place that we can all survive and be happy and have beautiful sunny days like today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Rich Ivanowaski. After that will be Jill Alton. No Evan? Or Rich. Next will be Jill Alton. After that will be Phil Foster.
My name is Jill Alton, J-I-L-L, A-L-L-P-H-I-N. I have lived here for 6 years. I was born and raised in Phoenix, so I know a lot about little background in Arizona. And I also know there's a big difference between Phoenix and Cochise County. People that moved here love it here. People that have been here all along love it here. And I think the thing that I like about today, it's the first time I've been to a big meeting of water conservation, but it is something that the minute I moved here, it was like, oh, I should know more about this because I have a well. And my neighbors have wells that are going dry, and they struggle with that. And anyway, the things I noticed about here, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the information. It's been really good coming from you and coming from everybody out here. I really have learned a lot today and broadened my perspective a bit. But when I did come here, I was surprised by certain things that big projects that are going on. Somebody mentioned the orchards. And I love agriculture, I love the orchards, but
you know, is this the best county for that many orchards? But our water is thinking, I don't know, I don't know enough about that, but the orchards is one. The giant berry down there, that, you know, on the outside, kind of like, oh boy, that's a big growing concern, and I bet we're all getting lots of tax money from it, benefits from it, and then the longer I live, the more I realize that's probably not happening, but I know that they've got to be big water users. And then somebody also mentioned the lithium mine. I don't even think that company is American at all, and that's kind of an issue as well. And like people have said, you know, we can't help that we're in drought. But I was very encouraged by everybody here that's been talking about, you know, sustainability and recharge, and looking at better practices. Not to say that the practices of people that have been here all along don't have a really good, they have such a background that we don't even know about, and they've seen the development and coming forward. And they've gotten on board because it's their cattle that are gonna die, and their families are gonna move and all of that.
I'm sorry, you reached your 2 minutes.
Okay. So I appreciate everybody's great input, and thank you so much. But I
Thank you for
am
your
concerned
comment.
about giving our rights away, so I don't agree with that, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Phil Foster, and after that will be David Roberts. Phil Foster? David Roberts.
Good afternoon. My name is David Roberts, D-A-V-I-D-R-O-B-E-R-T-S. I'm fairly new to the area. I'm a third-generation farmer in Central California, primarily a citrus grower. Water is an issue throughout the West. In our area, we're a little bit ahead of this action, and the government's answer is to dry up over 1 million acres of the most productive farmland in the world. At the same time, the United States is losing its food security. There are wars being fought over oil. They'll pale in comparison to wars over food. It's very short-sighted. Government should be working on projects to bring water into these areas that have the other resources. Farming is not just one thing. Farming is land, farming is climate, and farming is water. Most areas aren't blessed, like this area, with the climate and the land. So it needs the water. Same as California. The answer can't be, and it's happening around the West, whether you are a cattle rancher or whether you're in irrigated agriculture, the answer is get the cattle out, get the farmers out, we'll get our food someplace. No one has that answer. Tell me where we can grow food without using natural resources. It doesn't exist. So there needs to be more thought. The problem with the AMA is it's taking private property rights. You have one guy who's farmed, and you're going to let him go forward. Good. You have his neighbor who hasn't farmed, but maybe a successive generation wants to. You're going to lock him off that land without compensation. That's screwed up. The governments need to do and provide. When you grow a city, you build a church, you build roads, you build schools, you build shopping centers, but you don't build water infrastructure. You come and you strip it from the food source. That makes no sense. There's answers to the people whose wells are going dry, but stripping their food source, their food security, isn't the answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next up is Cheryl Knott.
legislature didn't do anything. And we now are at another turning point. If this had been taken care of 10 years ago, we would not be at this hearing, but we might be at a very different kind of hearing. One where we would learn about the progress on groundwater conservation made in the last 10 years. And one where comments from the public and input from the local Groundwater Users Advisory Council, required by law, would help shape the goals and plans for the next 10 years. Instead, we are all coping with the hard realities of living in one of the three most threatened basins in the state.
You reached your opinion.
2025 can be a turning point. Now is the time to create a future that has a stable water supply. I totally support that. Amen. Let's get on the path of conserving our water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the last comment card we will receive. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Let the record reflect that no one else wishes to speak. Is there anyone here who wishes to submit any written comments or evidence that they have brought with us? Let the record reflect that no one wishes to submit any written comments or evidence.